Well, hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, who is our lead solutions engineer. Also joining us today is Sarah Mitchell, who's in charge of our documentation department. And we'll be going over, I believe we're going to be playing with lists today. Dion will get more into that. But we are here to answer your questions. So go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and make you presenter. And there's your screen.
All right. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us. I had a fantastic trip up to Boston area and the corporate world headquarters of Alpha Software, and it was really educational. It was fun to be in the environment. We got our chance to do the webinar from there, and we're just going to continue. I'm back here in fabulous Tejas, and it's getting a little warmer. Not too bad yet, but it's getting starting. You know, summer's kind of peeking its head over the wall there, and it can go to 100 like next week or something like that. Anyway, very excited to be here. Really want to say thank you very much for joining us. We're here to help you. So if you could take the time, if you have questions, which we hope you do, please go to your Q&A section of the GoToWebinar control panel and put your questions there. Dave will be monitoring it. We'll get to as many as we possibly can, and we will try our hardest to actually answer those questions. So no guarantees, but we do our best. And also just wanted to say thank you for people who send in questions ahead of time. In fact, we have one which we'll be covering in a few minutes that was sent in ahead of time. I was really appreciated of those individuals. So what I want to do today is go over a quick little demonstration of something that I use in our solutions in the professional services group. And also, I think you might find a lot of fun. And then also, and this is in the list area, it really makes for a very dynamic, interesting user interface element that I think you're going to enjoy. And then I'm going to answer that question regarding the incoming security question about how to do something, and we'll give a little background about that in a minute. But as we mentioned, please take the time to go to your panel and put any questions that you might have so we can cover them while we're here. At the same time, I want to say, if you're not watching Transform Tuesdays, you are missing it. Actually, it might even be, or probably is more interesting than our session. But Transform continues to grow by leaps and bounds. One of the most interesting aspects I saw recently was the introduction of a dispatch interface, which is always a key part of any overall business process. And that was done by our esteemed colleague Nikos. And there's some great videos that are available on YouTube, including the sample controls. So if you're interested in finding out how it was built, and a lot of work is going into that and coming along really nicely, because Transform, some people just want to pick up Transform and go. They're not necessarily developers. So they want to be able to say, okay, I've got some forms built. I want to dispatch them, get them out, get them back, review, etc. And that's what that interface is going to help. But what's important is that Nikos and the team is sharing how they're building this. So if you want to incorporate that into your solutions, you're going to not have to start from zero. You're going to start from that 70, 80% and be able to leverage the work that's already been done. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check it out. Get signed up for Transform Tuesdays. You can send a request to guides@alphasoftware.com. As we continue to mature the Transform product, what I'm realizing and seeing, and this I got a lot last week, is that the speed at which and the complexity of the kind of applications you're able to build with Transform continue to grow, meaning it's getting simpler to build Transform apps that are very sophisticated, very capable, and actually the kind of things you can do with it are getting more sophisticated, more capable. And there's some really exciting stuff coming down the range for folks who are integrating Alpha and Transform to be able to do some workflow automation and other aspects. So we're very excited about that. And in general, and let me pop over here, I got an update on the 2008 roadmap that was presented at the DevCon at the end of last year. And across the board, they are making progress on every element of this agenda. And there's some really cool stuff on the server side that's going to be coming out fairly soon. You'll start seeing it in pre-releases in the next few weeks, but I think it's going to have a transformational impact on how we approach building and developing applications, and more importantly, how to leverage resources to do that. So we're very excited. We've got some webinars that are planned to go over those pieces, and we'll be doing those soon, along with the new security updates along the lines of two-factor authentication. There's just a lot of work that's being done on the server side that is going to make it easier for you to deliver more sophisticated, more flexible, more open platforms to your clients, for yourself, and make it easier to integrate with third-party services. And we're very excited about a lot of work is being done, and it's really coming together very, very nicely. So we can't wait to share with that. It's coming down the pike, and so we're going to do that. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to do a quick demonstration. It's in the list area, and show you a real cool feature, which I'm not sure, it's been around for a while, but I've just been starting to use it on certain projects, and people love it. So it's something that's really intuitive and easy to use, and built into the system, which is nice. And then what I want to do is talk about that security question and then open it up for the rest of the questions. Before I do that, quick sound check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Check, check, it's all coming through. Yep.
I feel like a roadie for, Wayne's World or something like that.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, cool. So Dynamite, I'm going to pop over into the fabulous Alpha Anywhere development environment, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new UX component, since that's where UXs live. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, you know what? I'm going to show you the demo of how it works. And then, oh, no, I don't want to do that one. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so we'll go ahead and build it from scratch. There we go. New UX. And I'm just building a plain UX. Now, I could start putting controls in here, but I like to kind of put together a structure. And I'm going to put a structure using the panel technology. Now, how you would do that is you have to go down to panels and you pick, like, do I want a layout where I'm going to have multiple things on the page at one time? Or am I going to do a navigator, which is just one thing at a time? But what's cool is Alpha actually has some built-in functionality to speed up your process. So I can go here to quick panels. And then on this quick panels here, I can say insert predefined panel layout. And I'm going to go ahead and put this, actually the one I want is this one. Panel layout with header footer with 2 panel cards, sample text object. And this is kind of its internal nomenclature for how that's done. So I go that's what it's going to be, and I click, and boom, I now have a panel layout that's ready to go. And so that's quick. I mean, I could manually build this by putting in a layout, adding a container up top for the header, adding my panel cards, boom, 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 absolutely. But you'll notice within a matter of a few moments, I have a very straightforward panel structure. And let me go here, let me go full root. It's when I restart my virtual machine, sometimes the working preview is blank, and so. Wake up, there we go. And so you'll see, well, this took more longer than building it, but you'll see I've got a header and I've got 2 static texts in 2 different panels and a footer here. So the nice thing is that it built all that for me. I'm going to go into design, into properties, and I want to go ahead and we'll select Alpha Blue, and I want to use the compact theme. So we'll call this list row movement. And let's see if my working preview is back working. Okay, let's see if it comes back, just so it takes a little less time. Come on. Stick with what works. Okay, so I wanted to make that compact so it's a little bit more room on the space. So you saw how this is a little smaller, these are all a little tighter, I can put more things on here. So a common design issue is this. I have a list of items and I want to add them to another list, say shopping carts / bill of materials building. I mean, I want to send it to these people in email and things like that. So one of the common capabilities is you want to display a list of items to someone and then have the ability to put that into another list for processing. So let me go ahead and show you how you can do that in a matter of a few minutes. So I'm going to go to my controls here. I'm going to go to my first panel card. And for folks who are newer, panel cards, think of them as containers for content. And in this first panel card, I have some static text. So I'm going to delete that. I don't need that anymore. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my opening tag here and I'm going to add a list control. So I'm going to click my opening tag here. I'm going to go to data controls, list, and I'll go list people. Okay. And you know what? I'm not going to use the quick setup genie. I'm just going to click OK just to create a list here. And I'm going to go into my list of people here. And to make this quick, I could connect this to a database, but what I'd like to actually do is just use some static data for this demonstration here. And that's often a nice little thing to do. You can kind of get going on that. So I'll go in here and I clicked on, just so I don't go too fast, I click static data, click the ellipsis button here, and this opened. I could now put in this data here, or I could click sample data and put in some pre-made data. So this just saves me some time. And you'll see this data is very simple. A header row with the field names, first name, last name, city, and state, and then a whole bunch of different data elements. And obviously you can tell that our friends from Alpha are very northeastern centric, because I don't see any southern states in this list here. So I'm a little offended.
Yeah, it goes north to South California there. You're from California.
Well, California doesn't count. That's, yeah. Oh, you have the only thing close to Chicago. That's Midwest. We'll give them that. So, okay. So I've given that list now. So now it's read that and took the top row and said, okay, here are those. And I'm just going to add these list items right here. Boom, boom, boom. I have a static list. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'll do a live preview. And then you're going to see there's my list. So basically the list grabbed that static data, and now I have these list items sitting right here in here. And it also took these headers. Now I could go in and style it, make it look great, etc., whatever it happens to be. But my goal is, what I want to be able to do is use this as a fancy selector. So I want to have certain people come from this list and go on to a second list. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a second list over here in static text 2. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go ahead and create, I'm going to go to list people here, and I'm going to go into the static data and I'm going to grab this header row because I want to make it identical. I don't want the data, I just want this header row. And I'll show you another way I could do this if I wanted to. So I'm going to open up and add a new list here, and I'll go this list target. So this is my target list where the stuff is going to go to. And I'm going to go up in here, and again, it's going to be static here because there's no data in it this time. I could do one of two things. I could insert this sample data here and then just delete the data, because I don't want the data, but I want to have the headers. I want to have the columns in my list, and they don't have to be identical, but they should be identical to my list on the left-hand side. So I now have my fields in here. I can go to my list layout and I can hide these, or I select them and put them there. Now when I save this and do a quick live preview, you'll see that I have two lists now, one on the left and one on the right. I have to fill this container. Notice it's putting in a sort of like a smaller subset, but you'll notice it has the same columns, but it doesn't have any data in it because it's empty. It has those columns there. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make this fill this list here. And now what I want to do is add a button that will move items from here to this list here. So what I'll first do is go to this list target, fill the container so it looks nice. Now I'm going to go up into this header and I'm going to go ahead and delete that static text. And I'm going to add a button here. So I'll go to other controls and add a button. And I'm going to go, I'll call it add item. Okay. So I now have add a my button. Now the button doesn't do anything. It's just an empty button. So what we want to do is add some action JavaScript to actually move an item from list people to list target. So I'm going to click on add item. I'm going to click add new action up here, and I'm going to type the word list. And you'll see I have an area called list control actions. And it's a sub action, meaning that there's a whole bunch of other actions below it. That's why it has this little parentheses and it says, hey, there's a bunch of stuff under here. So I click OK. Now this is bringing up my editor here. So I can say, what is the action? And you'll notice we have a ton of them, but the one we want to do is move selected rows from one list to another list. So it's a pre-built function. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do it. Click OK. Now that I've done that, it has two lists. It has the list I'm taking the item from and the list I'm going to. So the list target is my list of people, and my target list here is list target. That's why I called it target, just to kind of be consistent here. I click OK. And I save this. So save it, save often. We'll go ahead and do a fast preview. So now we have our list right here. I can click an item here, Henry Rhodes, and I'm going to click this button right here and watch. Boom. Henry Rhodes moved from this list over here. Add the item there. Let's say Kathy Morton. So basically, I'm now building this list, and now that I have a list of items here, I can then take action on it. I can, this could have been a list with a detail view and everything else, so you could put it into another table. You could also add a XBasic callback to pull the list data out and process it. Anything is possible. So the neat thing though is that this is responsive in nature. It's simple to do, and you'll notice I had zero coding involved with this process. And this happens all the time. Shopping carts, I'm adding an item, I want to remove an item. In fact, we have add item, but we want to be able to remove an item. So let's go ahead and design. Let's go ahead and add another button here. And we're going to call that button remove item. And I'm going to go ahead and make these both on the same row. I'm going to go ahead and remove item. I'm going to add an action like I did before and list control actions. And it's the identical here. I'm going to do move selected rows list from one list to another. From the target list, I'm going to move it to the people list. So I'm reversing the concept here. So I'll click OK, click save, save this. Now I'm going to do a working, oh, no, I want to do a live preview. Okay, so I'm going to add items here. Now I'm going to select Amanda and go, you know what? Back you go. John, back you go. Cecilia, back you go. And you'll notice it's just moving stuff from one list to the other, and it's lightning fast. Now, I want to do one other thing before we leave this subject is that, well, it's kind of a pain to pick something and go over here. What if I just want to tap these and go from there? Well, no problem. Let's go into the designer. And the first thing I want to do is you'll notice here that the action JavaScript for doing this action, which is moving it from one row to, or from one item to another, is embedded in this button, which is okay. You can do that. But one of the common design practices we're really pushing is that you want to centralize your actions. So the idea is you don't want to necessarily define things on the buttons. You want to do it here in JavaScript Actions and then reference it in that button. So for instance, I could go over to JavaScript Actions and go through that process, but there's a shortcut. I'm going to go back into my add item. Here's my action, and you'll notice there's a link up here. And this is only a few months old, last big release. But I can sit there and say, I want to convert this to a JavaScript action. So currently it's a JavaScript action that's built on this there, but I want to move it over here. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to select that one and say, okay. And I'm going to call this move to target. Actually, I'm going to call it something even more. I'm going to say move row to target. So it's very understandable. So you'll notice something cool. First, what it did is it took that actual action, which will do that move in there, and it actually put it over in JavaScript Actions. We'll see that in a moment, but it also went ahead and created a run action that runs that action right here. So I don't have to then recreate this button. It's done that stuff for me. So now when I click this button, it doesn't actually run the code. It says, oh, go look at the JavaScript actions and run your code there. If I go here, you'll see, there's move row to target that's available here. Now, there's two reasons why we want to do this. One is that if I need to reference this action in multiple places, now I have it in a central location. So if I ever have to maintain or edit it, then I don't have to go dig out all the different places I'm doing that. It's in one place, and my other items, buttons, etc., will point to that one location. And from a maintenance standpoint is that if you get into this standard practice here, if someone inherits your project and you have a new programmer, you can say, all actions are right here. And then any actual user interface element will just reference that action. And I'll show you that in a moment here. So let's do the same thing with remove item. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm opening up that button with that action here. I'm going to convert it. I'm selecting it. I'm going to say move row to people, which is the people list. And maybe it'd be like source or something like that. So again, it's substitute that run action. So it's moved that action name over. And if I go over here to JavaScript Actions, I now have both my actions that are here. So I'll go OK. Now, you'll notice I'm still using it here, so I can use that add button, but now I can go into my list of people here. I'm going to go to list properties, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to find the onClick event. So when someone clicks on a list here, it's going to fire this event. So I'm going to double click here, and you'll notice that I can put in JavaScript. So I could say alert or whatever it happens to be. But notice this button right here. I can say action, insert code to run a JavaScript action, and I can say move row to people. So now what happens is if someone clicks on a row in that list, it's just going to trigger our central action here, which is the move capability. And I'm going to do the same thing in list target. I'm going to open up list target, go to my list properties, go down to my onClick event, and I'm going to insert the code for the move row to people. So I want to move it back to people. So that runs that action here. So let's go ahead and save this. So we moved basically the actions out of these buttons into a central location. It automatically references that, and then we added that same action to 2 other locations. So I now can go into my working preview, not my live preview. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, now watch when I click Allison. Oops, did I hit the wrong one? Let's go back. Oh, let's go to list properties. I might have picked the wrong one. There it is. Insert to move row to target. I was having it move to the same list. I just didn't know they were in the right naming order. So now let's go back in. I totally lost the whole wow factor. Okay, Henry Rhodes, Nancy Clark, Kathy Smith, Higgins. Oh, I want Kathy off there. So now look at how fast I can do this stuff. You think your users are going to like it versus having to type them in or do anything like that. And again, you can do many other things with this once this happens from there. Now these buttons right here are still active. So you notice Nancy Clark is here. If I click add item, it runs that same action JavaScript. So it allows you to continually use it in different locations here. Now, what I want to do is show you how powerful that concept is. So I have it working here and in here. It's covering the same action. But let's say I want to add something to that action, something that does a little more interesting. Now, instead of digging out the code here and modifying it, digging out the code in here and modifying it, I just go to my central location here. I open up this right here. I'm going to add a new action. In this case, I'm going to do a cool one, which is transient. And I'm just going to say added item to target. Okay. So now when this action is triggered, it's going to actually do 2 things. It's going to move the item and it's going to give me a message box. So now I click save. I can do a working preview here. Oh, I'm so used to hitting working preview. Jeez. So now watch what happens here. You'll see that I got a little message here. So it did the first thing, which is move it over here, and it gave me this message here. Now, if I click over here, it doesn't do the message, it just does the action. But now you see the power of centralizing your JavaScript actions. If you need to make any change at all, you do it here, and then what happens is that anywhere you reference that JavaScript action will work. And this could become a very complicated, you could have 20, 30 panels. God, never know what it is. So that's what you do there. So that is a very powerful feature. I'm going to go ahead and, this is really a fun feature. You know what? Let me do this. I'm going to pause. I'd like to go ahead and give this to everybody since it's a static example. So I'm going to pause the screen right now. Okay. Everybody wait for it here. I'm going to do something kind of cool. Going to go here. Let's see, list. Okay. Let's copy that to Dropbox. Going over to Dropbox. Okay, go to Dropbox. I'm going to go list, row move. I'm going to copy the Dropbox link, and then I'm going into the chat window. And then there we go. So if you want that real time, go ahead and go ahead and look in the chat window. You can download that. I just put what we just built into it. So if you want to play with it, you can see the different pieces there. And since it uses static data, we don't have to worry about connection strings or anything like that. Now, we had a question came in from one of our esteemed colleagues, and this person is building really a SaaS solution. And the idea behind it is that they have built a solution that companies will use. So you'll have like a manager who will log into the company, and then in that company, the manager needs to add other users. So think of it as kind of a nested environment. You have the system administrator at the top level, and then you have the companies, and then they have users there. So the question was, well, I don't want to have to be sitting there and adding users day in, day out for people. I want to empower them with the ability to add their own users. Well, the cool thing about this is that we have a built-in capability, and that is our built-in security UX templates. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add UX component, and then I'm going to scroll down here, and there's a whole series of items here under your UX templates called security framework. And you'll see you have create new user account, you have create new user account and add user information, you have edit account, etc. So I'm going to use this one just to kind of show you what it looks like. But what you can use this is as the base point. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to my screen. So now it's built and I'll just show you what it looks like real quick. Okay, so you can add a first name, last name, and phone number, and then add their security data right here. And this does it all. And this explains how this works. And there's actually videos that will show you this on how to work and how to do this here. But this is a pre-built UX. So what it does is that it puts in, it handles everything. So for instance, it has the different fields. And then on the after dialog validate, it's already got code to save the data for the user, meaning their metadata. And then it also has the code to save their web security values, which is their password. So it actually inserts data in the alpha security environment and also updates another table, which is where their information would be for first name, last name, etc. Now, what I advise the person to do is the following: is most often what happens is that every user is a member of an organization. And so what you can do here is we can actually go here, and I'm going to add a container here, and it's going to be a none container. And then in that container, I'm going to add another text box, which is called like organization ID. Now what I have in here is a hidden field, because what I'll do is this container right here is I will say client side 1 equals 0. So they never see this organization ID. So what would happen is when the manager opens up this UX, you would set this organization ID automatically by, for instance, equals session.organization ID. So let's say when the person logs in, like the manager, you know what organization they are. So you put it in an organization ID, and then when they open up this UX, it automatically grabs that session and puts it here. They never have to know what's going on behind the scenes. And then what you do is you data bind that organization ID to your underlying table where you're maintaining your customer information, which, by the way, should be your user extended user information table. That's the new technology. And then what will happen is when the person is saved, two things will happen. Their metadata or their user data will be saved, including that organization ID. And then at the same time, the security information for that person will be also saved. Now, there's one other aspect to this. When you insert someone into the user tables, you need to actually do two things. You're inserting a user ID and a password. So that's number one. So when we create a member of our user security environment, they are given a user ID and a password. And then the password has to meet criteria, etc. But we do one other thing. We have to assign them a role. So for instance, in this case, let's say that manager's adding another user, you may want to default what that user roles are. And this is explained in that video, but if I can go to user roles over here, I can go to the default value is equal to, say, user, or equal to company member. This is the name of the group that they should be. That sets their security policies So when they're running and they log in, we know that this user has a certain user role. So you can just basically default it right here into this user role. Now, alternatively, if you have a scenario where let's say that manager is adding a user and there's actually multiple potential roles that this new user could have, depends on how sophisticated you get, then what you need to do is change this user role from a hidden default value to something like a radio button. And then in the radio button, you can put in here, user type A, user type B, user type C. And then therefore, when they enter in the person, they can select what type they are. And then when you insert it, it's going to include that user role in that. So when you create it, and you could use a checkbox and also a radio button because people can be members of multiple organizations. But the concept behind this is you use this basic template, you hard code the things behind the scenes so they can't add a user to another organization. So when they open this up behind the scenes, I've already set the organization. So you may have one where you can have like a drop-down box for this, but then for the one that the manager is going to use, this is hidden and hard coded to that organization so they don't use it. And the benefit of this now is you can add self-managed user management to the user from there. And I would use this template as your starting point. And again, there's a bunch of notes in here. There's actually some really good, oops, no, there's, here's the notes right here. There's also some really good videos that are built in. And I don't know if that's still a relevant video, so I won't click it here. But there's a whole series of videos that actually walk you through how to use this this UX template and the other ones that are available. So for instance, I created one to create a new user, but let's say you wanted to give the user the ability to change their own password. You could use the change password for current user. You could edit the account for an existing user, a whole bunch of other ones, and all these have videos that are associated with it to show you how to use them. But that hopefully gives you a pointer on how to do it. Use the built-in functionality. Behind the scenes, hard code some things that the user doesn't see to make sure the data being input by this manager is going to the right location, and have fun. It's really fun once it's put together. And that's how you can set up that kind of multi-tiered management structure. So you don't have to sit there and give them access to anything. They can basically just do a certain level of things within the system. So those were the two questions that really came in, were part of it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Dave and see if we have any kind of questions.
We do. So let's start with a few of the questions of the stuff that you were just covering. And one had to do with how you centralized your code, right? So you took something that you had attached to a button, and instead you put it into a function and had that button call the function. And someone asked, well, does that really work? How does the JavaScript function know what it should be moving? In other words,
okay. So
do it, or
good point.
How does that work?
So we create an action like here, and in the action we define what should be, in this case, move it from list people to list target.
Right.
So it's sort of encoded in the action. So as far as me, I just say, hey, go do this action. It's up to the action's responsibility to know what controls are on your user interface. And then, so if you have like 12 lists, you would just define this action that goes between them. And by the way, you can do some other cool stuff. You can move all rows from one list to another. You could remove rows from a list. You can do a lot of really fun things with this capability. So then once I've defined this action, anytime I need to run it, I just put this little piece of JavaScript in a button, on a list, and into an XBasic callback. I mean, you name it, you can use it anywhere. And all this does is that when the system sees this, it says, oh, okay, I'm gonna go look at my centralized actions. It says, oh, it's move row target, great. I'm gonna go ahead and start that. Oh, I've got this first action here, so I'm gonna do what it tells me to do. Then I'm gonna go here and do the second action, do what it tells me to do. And then once it's done, and then it stops processing at that time. So the knowledge of what sort of controls it's operating on are encoded in the actual action itself, the JavaScript action here. Now that said, let me show you something important. Sometimes you're creating JavaScript actions that aren't linked hard-coded to different things. So I'll go ahead in here and I'm going to create a button here. And I'm going to get here and I'm going to say, add a new action. I'm going to go run action. And I'm going to say this, but you'll notice there pass in a reference to the object that invokes the action. So sometimes you've created like a generic action, but you may have like 12 buttons on your screen and you have to know which of those buttons were clicked. Well, what you can do is you can pass in a reference so that when you can associate this action with like 12 different buttons, and then when the action is triggered, the button says, oh, by the way, this is who I am. So if you need to know who I am to do anything like maybe change my coloring or hide me or do whatever it needs to know, you'll have it. So it gives you an example here is that if the action is invoked by a button and the action opens a window as a drop-down position relative to that button, well, we can pass in a reference so it knows which element to do the drop-down. If you had 12 buttons, it would know, oh, button 1 was the one who called me, so I'm going to set my reference and do the drop-down close to number 1. So that's what this pass in a reference. And that's for a situation where you have sort of a generic behavior in your action JavaScript, and you need to know who called it. In the case of these, the ones I already have, they're essentially hard-coded because I'm saying, okay, yeah, list ID there, and the list IDs are hard-coded in the system. Good question.
Cool.
Thank you.
Similar, actually, somewhat similar question, and it had to do this time with if you go now that you're still in list control actions, it said move selected rows. Is it possible to move multiple rows at the same time? And also, is it possible to move all rows at the same time?
Good point. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, well, for your first question, absolutely. One of the functions in here, and you'll notice it says move selected rows. You also have move all rows from one list to another. So that's built into it.
Okay.
But I'm going to do the following. Watch. I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to list people. And first thing I'm going to do is I don't want to, on the click event, I don't want that to occur because it will confuse it. So I'm going to get rid of the click event. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to the up here, and you'll see that I have the ability to do what's called a multi-select on a list. So I'm going to enable that. And I'm going to go there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, now that I got rid of that, when I click on a row, it's not going to actually do anything yet. But now I can go in here.
That's going to lead me to my next question, by the way. But
see, notice I select these and then I say add them. Boom.
There you go. Okay, great.
And then you can deselect by clicking on stuff. So if I don't want Amanda, then I say add item. And then these are still single clicks, but then these are multi-clicks. That's how it works there. Cool.
Excellent. So question, working preview, live preview. We get this question all the time. What is the difference? When do you use one over the other?
Okay, so working preview is using an internal browser component built, well, it's now using Chrome, but it's built into the UX. So it's faster for rendering time. When you do live preview, what it's actually doing is copying the files out of your project to a folder on your drive. And if we go to the A5 WebRoot drive here, there's a folder in here called live preview. All this, so you can see I have all these different stuff here. There it is. And in here, it basically copies the stuff into this local folder and then runs it using the built-in application server. And the reason we do that is twofold. One, we get some better fidelity because we're really running it within the true full-blown system with the browser. Before, actually, working preview used an internal web rendering component. Now it's actually using Chrome. So it used to be a rendering issue, but now that's kind of gone away. But the number one thing you need to realize about live preview and working preview is, for instance, if you have like file downloads, they won't work in working preview. You have to be in live preview because it's relying on the underlying browser to do some of that actions for you, and you can't do it within the system there. If you are doing anything related to security, I think you have to be in live preview. Session variables work in working preview there. So there's just some nuances in terms of what will work with it. 90% of the time you're in working preview, and then live preview. Another substitute is just have it running in your browser window hit publish, open your browser window, hit a refresh, and boom, you're running inside your browser. So that's, I've seen people use that methodology also. But the main difference between working in live preview is there's certain features in live preview that aren't available in working preview, like for instance, doing file uploads. Like if, let's say I created a file upload component, and then I go into working preview and I click on there, it's gonna say, sorry, can't run here. You go into live preview, it's actually using the underlying browser, and so then the file upload functionality does work. So there's just little small nuances between the two of them. Again, most of the time you'll use working preview. The system will tell you if it can't do something in working preview and switch over to live preview.
Awesome, thank you. So here's like an architecture question. It was one that was asked early in the session, and it has to do with the Alpha Anywhere application server. And the question is, do Alpha Anywhere mobile apps require the Alpha application server to run?
The answer is no, they are not required to use that. You can build a standalone app and deploy it, and it never talks to the server ever. Now, if you are doing a app that uses like data synchronization, then you're going to need the Alpha application server, because for instance, this list, we're currently using it with a static, but if I did SQL, pointed to SQL and everything else, what happens is the mobile app list says, hey, I need some data, excuse me, calls the app server gets the data and returns it, and then you edit data and send it back for the app server is taking care of all of that. So the answer is no. I could literally wrap this and deploy this, and it would never have to talk back to the server because there's no connection involved with it. So you can build the standalone app without having to use the application server, but the application server does all the heavy lifting as far as data synchronization, data management, and then also allowing you to do server-side XBasic functions. So if I have created some XBasic functions, those don't actually run on the mobile device. The system will call back and run those on the server. So if you have any XBasic, that's just not going to work because it needs to have the server to do that work. If I've written JavaScript functions, on the other hand, those are all running locally, so you can go ahead and create any, to a large degree, JavaScript functions. JavaScript actions to a large degree, but if you're doing things like any kind of server interactions with the JavaScript actions, those are not going to work. But I could go in here and write my own functions and use them in here, doesn't need the server, and they would just go along with it onto the mobile app. So the answer is, depending on what you're going to do, you don't necessarily need to have the Alpha application server.
So another question about moving rows around. This has really sparked a lot of interest today, so it was a good topic.
Good, yeah. I mean, it's so much fun and easy. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is. Well, here's one, which is there a way to prevent a row from being moved?
Yeah, so the way you can do that is, let's go ahead and look at the JavaScript action. Okay, and this is kind of a great question because right here, we're building this here. So now I can view the JavaScript. Ah, there you go. That's the JavaScript. List move current selection from the from row to there. Now, let's go ahead and copy this, okay? And I'm going to add a new button. And I'm going to screw this up, so bear with me, everybody. I'm going to do what I do best.
Counting on you, Dion. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go limited move. So I'm going to go in here and I can go right to text mode and I can sit there and say paste. Okay. So I've created I basically just kind of grabbed the JavaScript, which is perfectly okay. Nobody's going to get mad at you or anything like that. So
did it again.
I should just restart my system real quick, but I don't know. Things are working okay. It couldn't, Okay. So I can click an item here and I can say limited move, and it does that limited move. Now let's do this. I'm going to go into here. And now I'm going to get into code land. I'm going from, this is really low code though. I'll go var first name equals, then I'm going to go ahead and I want to pick, say, the first name in this list of people and say, if the first name is that name, then don't move it. Like, I don't want this name over there. So I'm going to go first name is equal to, now I go, what the heck do I do here? Well, check it out. There's these UX component methods down here. So this is all of the different things you can write. So I'm going to do one that's called get value, list get value. Actually, I'll do get value here. Okay. And what I can do is I can click here and I can say list controls, list people, first name. So whatever the clicked item, it's going to grab that first name. And in fact, let me show you how this works. I'm going to go alert first name, and I'm going to comment out line 4. Okay. So let's do this. Notice I hit the right one. Finally, it's like dog getting zapped. Eventually they get it. So I'll click here and I'll go limited move. There's John. Allison. Oops, John. Oh, you know what? There's something. Oh, you know why? Multi-select. I got to turn off multi-select. Yep. If multi-select, there's a different way to do it, FY. And I can explain that later, but I'm going to turn off multi-select for right now because it's basically, it gets confused. I just fixed a problem on that this week. Let me go ahead and do that here. So our demo will work. So you got kind of nuances of what the different things
Live
are.
preview, Dion. Live preview.
I know. Zap. I should have like 110 volts to my mouse. Ow!
Should we let the audience control it? That would probably be better.
Okay, so we have Allison, we have Cecilia, and we have Kathy. Okay. So you notice that I turned off that move. I'm just getting that. Now I can go into my button here. And by the way, this should be really a JavaScript function, and I refer that to. I can go if first name equal, and I've got to get there,
equal.
John.
Yep.
And it's and I put that in. I'm still learning this here. Okay. And actually, what it says, bang, not equal to John. We don't want John going over this list. He's out of here.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I just put in a little like piece of code that said, get the name of the list of the item. And then if, there's a condition, then I'll do it. So let's see if this works. Live preview. Okay. So I'll go here to Amanda. Okay. Henry. Now John. Didn't work.
So we
can extend
this. Immovable. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. So I can go to my JavaScript actions here. I can go to this transient message and get that JavaScript a little bit bigger because there's a lot more in there. I can then go back here and I'm going to go back into this button here, limited move, and I want to go ahead, and when that does, I want to tell the person something now. So I'll say, where is my message? John is staying put. Okay, so basically I've just combined that. So now let's do a live preview. Still working okay. Now I go to John. Oh, it ran that. I'll have to find out why. Oh, you know what? I know why, because I didn't have my code logic. Go back in here. What happens is I want to put in a else. Wait, it's an if the else situation, else. And the else is where I want to give the message. So I'm actually going to grab this. So if it is not John, go ahead and do the movement. If not, show the message. And of course, it doesn't like something here. Because, okay. So now if I have this correctly, if they aren't John, then they'll move. If not, they're going to give me a message. So I'll go ahead and do limited. Then I'll do John, and you'll see John is staying put, and it didn't move over there. So that's a great question, because the reality is Action JavaScript is really just there to write JavaScript for you, but there's no reason why you can't go into the JavaScript action, go behind the scenes, look at the JavaScript, and grab it and use it yourself. And it's a great way to get into using Alpha in understanding what it is, how to do some JavaScript coding. And you can get some very sophisticated behaviors that are going on there, even doing XBasic callbacks with JavaScript, referring to session variables, you name it, you can do it. And just a real quick reminder, when you're in here and you want to learn more about it, down here, notice it says insert UX component method. These are all the built-in functions that are available. And as you can see, there's tons of them. There's phone gap specific ones. There are form view specific ones. There are list specific ones. There's map specific ones, you name it. There are tons of capabilities. And what's cool is that here is the name of it, and it gives you a definition. but they give you an example here that you can copy this example and paste it and then edit it. So there's a lot of shortcuts to get you up and running very quickly as far as that goes from there. So great question, thank you.
Very cool. Now, I see that you customized the transient message based on the data that was being moved. Would you mind showing that again? Because someone asked specifically about how do I customize that transient message when I'm doing a move?
Oh, great
so
question.
Saying
okay.
I'm moving stuff, you want to say I'm moving John or Mary to the other
Yeah,
person.
okay.
Mary is
so what I have to do is you'll notice that I create a variable here called HTML. So I actually, what I need to do is, let's fake this out. Let's say I grabbed whatever the field, let get value. Oh, you know what? Let's do this. Let's switch this around. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to put that if they are not John, they're staying put, and we want to give a message to see to everybody what that's going on there. Okay. Okay, so I kind of reversed it, where if it's not John, I want to say they're not moving, and if they are John, or if they are John, they're going to get moved. So I've already gotten this first name in here, so now I can just go in here and I can say, I think it's plus first, and this is where syntactically you got to know JavaScript a little bit, but luckily there's like a billion articles on it there. So basically I'm just editing this little script by concatenating in that first name. So if this works right, which we'll see, which would be a miracle, but miracles do happen. I'm a believer. Okay,
and
Nancy.
They often happen during Wednesday webinars too.
Yep, so. Nancy is staying put.
There you go.
Kathy's staying put. Amanda's staying put. But John, boom, John's gone. But Allison, staying put. So that's where, and this is actually, I kind of like this because you don't have to be a JavaScript novice. You know, the cool thing is once you get in here, I'm go ahead and reopen this here. It's something when I restart my VM, it loses like its screen or something like there. So you go JavaScript, concatenate string, and then, you know, and there's this W3 Schools, which I tend to use. They have really nice tutorials in there, but you can see right here, the plus operator. And so you go right here and it shows you an example of how to do screen concatenation, which happens to be very simple, very like alpha. But then it tells you other ways and other things. So you can usually, if you need to do it, you can go over here and then you go back in here and play with it. And one other thing I want to show you, let's say I screwed this up. Okay, I'm screwing this up. Okay, now I want to check out why that's screwed up. And this is super important because once you're in JavaScript land, you lose a little visibility to begin with. So I'm going to go into live preview here and I'm going to do limited move and wait a minute. Dave, stuff's not working.
Oh man.
Welcome to my life, my day.
During a webinar? Shut up.
Yeah, I know. Now I'm going to go down here. Check this out. Open Chrome Debugger. Yeah. This is like going to be the most valuable thing today, by the way. I'm going to go to console and check it out. Watch this. I'm going to go ahead and hit limited move and then re-show that. Here is the error. And what happens is if a JavaScript error gets spit into the console, and then in here you can say, oh, get value 2 is not a function. Oh boy, let me go back to design. Yep, there's where I screwed it up. Save that. And now when I redo it, it will work, hopefully. So your friend is in live preview. Is if you have JavaScript, you can open the Chrome Debugger and go to the console, and then if things happen in there, you can see the errors. And in fact, there's something else you can do, which is really cool, is you can go like this. You can say console.log, and this is just JavaScript. This is AOA. Here is my webinar, console.log, first equals plus. Okay, so there's a built-in JavaScript command that is known by the browser called console.log. So basically it's a print function for a browser. So when you're doing JavaScript stuff, sometimes you're like, I just can't see what's going on here. What the heck's going on here? So I can go there, go back here. Wait, let's see. Oh, there we go. So I've clicked my limited move. Now I'm going to go over here and check it out. Here's my webinar. So each time I call that, and you'll notice it spit out that variable here. So this is your way to kind of see behind the scenes what's going on. And in fact, in here, you can go first name. I think it's, you can actually do some other fun. I haven't done much there, but basically allows you to do print lines into the console. So when you're watching what's going on, you can be saying, oh, is it getting the right variable? Is that being set right? Did it even get into that function? Did it die beforehand? Did my, so because again, if you're ex-basic, you go to JavaScript, you're gonna make a lot of basic mistakes just because the language is a little different and you have a different nomenclature. Things like, for instance, JavaScript is case sensitive. It's a big pain in the tail. But this allows you to not only see the errors, but also you can put in your own messages in there. And then just make sure when you go to production, you go into your design and just comment those out with the // That way, otherwise, you're going to see all these interior, a person running your app on their browser could open up the log and see what's going on. So the last thing you want to do is like show secret API key to console.log would be a bad thing to keep in your code. Not that I've ever done that. No, Dave, ain't, no,
So here's a good question, and one I know you can answer in 4 minutes. You placed your buttons up at the top, but imagine you wanted to place a button that moved a row in the row itself, the button for the row in the row.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
So I'm going to go into the list of people.
How do you add buttons to a list control in the first place?
Yep. What you can do is you go to fields here, you go to add item, and I'm going to call it a button. I'll go move it, baby. Okay. Then that's the button. And so now I'm going to click the onClick event. I'm going to insert my code. Again, why I centralize. Now I don't have to rewrite all that. I just go, oh, move row to target. Now I wonder with all my other changes what's going to happen, but let's see what happens. Oh, it should just work there. Last time you're going to see me do that today.
Only because it's the end of the webinar. Yeah.
Oh, I have to go back in here. I've added the button to my fields, but
not
guess
my layout.
What? My layout. Where's my layout? So I go over here. Now layout item. And then I can go there. See, you thought I was going to work in preview. There's probably a betting pool on that out there. Oh, who won that one?
You've edited it a few times, it looks like.
I must have added a couple times. But notice what's going on. I just click this button.
Yep.
And it's adding it. So I'll have to go fix that. But that's basically how you do it, is you add a button, then you attach the command to that button, and then you put it into the list view. So
again, and the suggestion they had was like an add or buy, add to list or buy button or something.
That's strange. I'll have to check that out. It might be a bug.
Yeah, that's weird.
Again, pre-release here. So we go through these painful processes so you don't have to.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, let me see what they're. Yeah, I'll have to report. I'll try that. I'll duplicate that.
Yeah, that's weird. I've never seen that before. Certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, good to know. We'll do that. But that's how you do it. Is you just basically list people, go to fields, add an item, then go to list layout, and then move that over here. And then that will show my existing fields plus my new field. So then it should be good to go. So that's how you do it there. And now that button right here, if I go to the fields, go to the button, there is a click on click event. And this is where you're actually either editing, creating your own JavaScript. But as I've said before, centralize it. Then that way, when you go to edit it and modify it, it's in all in one spot.
Excellent. Well, there are more questions than we can get to because we have run out of our time.
That teaches you a lesson. Get them in ahead of time.
So
if you're psychic, you'll know what we'll talk about.
Grab your question now. Copy it out. Email it into us, into guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com. We will look through them and we will answer them next Wednesday, but we'll even get in touch with you ahead of time with the answer. We do not keep you waiting if you ask questions. So Dan, thank you very much for presenting
Thank you.
today. Great lively session. A lot of people seem to be interested in the use of
I
this.
know
and
people are
stuff
awake
around.
today.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone who asked questions and everyone who showed up. Have a great week. Hope to see you next Wednesday. Take care and goodbye.